Hey, I'm Lorelei, registered dietitian nutritionist. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to talk about what to do with tofu. Tofu is made from soy. You've probably heard that. It is a really great vegetarian source of protein because soy contains all 9 essential amino acids, which is the sciencey way of saying it's a complete protein. If you are new to tofu, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks as to how to prepare it so it actually... Hey, Joe.
I heard we're talking about tofu.
I know, your most favorite subject.
I don't know if that's my most favorite. I don't know what to do with tofu.
Well, then this video is just for you.
Great!
Tofu and you. So we're going to talk about how to make tofu.
You go to the store and you choose between firm or flabby tofu.
That's actually a really good point. What tofu do you even pick? So this is firm tofu. I actually use... That's right. I actually usually get extra firm, but Joe went to the store this week, so...
I got the thing that said firm tofu!
Extra firm.
I got it in cube form.
No, this isn't cubed yet. It's just one brick.
It's 1 cube of tofu.
I also usually buy organic tofu, and Joe did well on this front.
I don't think there were any other options.
Yeah, that's probably true. I'm not super picky about buying like organic produce and things like that, but with tofu I usually do go organic for various reasons, which we can have a discussion about in the comments if you would like to. I have a couple of blocks of tofu. The first one is pressing here, as you can see.
Why are you squishing your tofu?
Because there's a lot of water in it, and we want to get some of that water out. Tofu is really absorbent. So we wanted to absorb the stuff that's flavorful, and we kind of got to get the water out so the flavor can go in. You just eat tofu plain, that it doesn't taste like anything.
Yeah. What can you do with tofu is my question for you.
What can you do with tofu? There's 2 things you kind of want to think about when preparing tofu. First, flavor. You got to get it in there. Second, texture. You got to work on it a little bit.
And you got to use as many ooh words as possible.
How many words can you think of that rhyme with tofu? So I've been vegetarian for a really long time, and tofu was not a starter food for me. Let's
It tastes pale.
It tastes like nothing, and its texture is...
It's jello. It's vegetable jello.
Yeah, it's just kind of squishy and not bad.
But it can be awesome.
It can be.
I do like it more than I used to.
That's right.
Said I about tofu.
Because of me.
Yes. And because it's prepared the way that is better.
Because of me.
Yes. So you can make it into cubes. You can make it into strips. You can make it into
Crumbles.
smaller pieces. And you can drizzle things onto it to make it taste like other things.
Yeah.
So it's a food imposter. It's a master of disguise.
It is a master of... Disguise isn't the right word though. It's a master adapter. It can adapt to all sorts of circumstances.
Great.
It actually is a real food.
It's not really food, but it pretends to be.
Food.
It's good for you.
Packed with protein. I put it in lasagna sometimes when we make lasagna.
I haven't noticed, but good to know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sometimes I can sneak it into a smoothie because it blends really well.
Who does that? Why would you?
You can sometimes use it in baked goods. It will also blend in and kind of substitute for an egg. Today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bake it, we're gonna fry it, and we're gonna scramble it. And then at the very end, I'm gonna give you a little tofu bonus.
I'll eat it at some point as well.
Say woohoo to tofu!
Woohoo! Tofu!
Okay, so I have some tofu that has been pressing for a while to get the moisture out. I'm gonna press this one too, but in the meantime, we're gonna use this one to fry and to bake. Let me get the oven on. The first thing I'm gonna show you is basically how to make a tofu steak. This is not a substitute for a regular steak, but steak being sort of the size and shape of what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna cut like a slab of it. This is, I think, the easiest way to prepare tofu if you come home and just wanna make some dinner and you want some tofu. We're just literally gonna fry it in a pan, put some seasoning on it, and then you can eat it with a side of vegetables, maybe a side of rice or a sweet potato on the side. You just would cut it like you'd cut a steak. It's tasty, it's not fancy, but it's pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna get a pan heating for this one while the oven is preheating for the baked tofu. which is frankly my very favorite way to make tofu. Non-stick pan is ideal, but we are gonna put a little bit of oil down on the bottom of it. I gotta open this one up so I can press this one. And this is gonna be for the scrambled tofu. To press tofu, just put it on like a cutting board or a plate or something like that. And I usually wrap it in a paper towel, or you can use like an absorbent clean dishcloth, something that will absorb some of the moisture. I think that's better than just having it sit in its own water, to actually pull the water out of it. And then to help, we're gonna put a plate and some kind of weight. You can use a can or a jar, or you can use something that's got some weight to it. Bag of flour. You also want something that if for some reason it tips, it's not gonna break. I'm gonna plop this into the pan and we're gonna try to sear it on both sides. Give the tofu steak a few minutes to get kind of browned on one side before you flip it. So it could have used more time, but you can see it's a little bit golden. And at this point, I might add a little bit of soy sauce here to just help cook into it while it's continuing to fry. Let's cube the rest of this. Some people will do this as strips. I like cubes, but make it into the size pieces that you want. I like to do smaller pieces because it creates more surface area, because we're going to marinate this before we bake it. So the more surface area, the more of that marinade that can get absorbed into the tofu. And then we can marinate this in a bowl, but sometimes I actually will just use the pan I'm planning to bake in and marinate it right in there because I don't want an extra dish. This is only about 2/3 of the block of tofu, so I'm gonna use about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I don't use low sodium soy sauce because we actually do need some saltiness to go into this tofu, but if you don't need it as salty, go ahead and use the amount that makes sense to you. About 2 tablespoons, some oil. I use olive oil, but I might throw a teeny bit of sesame oil in there too. If I was doing the whole block of tofu, I'd do about a tablespoon of oil, but because it's not the full block, I'm gonna use a little less than that. And maybe just the drizzle of toasted sesame oil, just for an extra little flavor. And you don't need much of this, just a drizzle. You could add anything else at this point. So maybe some spices if you wanted to throw something in there. You could use like a hot sauce in there. Sometimes I'll throw in a little vinegar or even a little wine. This is where you really can add in some different seasonings. But for me, my just basic way of going is soy sauce and oil. And then you can mix that up. Use a fork if you want to, or just swirl it around. And then I'm just gonna layer this in here so that each cube is in touch with this marinade. And then before we put it in the oven, we'll flip it so that both sides get a little chance to get coated or absorb it. I really love baked tofu because if you bake it, it gets brown and the texture actually gets less squishy and it gets a little bit more chewy. I think it's great to throw cubes of baked tofu into a stir fry. You could put them on top of a salad, or I sometimes will even eat just the cubes of tofu as a snack by themselves. They're that fun to eat. I've got the oven preheating to 400 degrees, so a hot oven is gonna be helpful. You can kind of swirl this around here too, but we are gonna flip these before we throw them in. Let's see how it's doing. it a little sizzle. You want it to get a little crispy on both sides, so you can leave it in for as long as you like. A lot of the browning is from the soy sauce, but you can keep it going to your liking. In the time it took the oven to preheat, this tofu steak is already done, which is why I like it for its speed and ease of preparation. And we'll just put it on a plate and we can serve it like that. You want to make sure that your tofu is in a single layer so that each side is going to get a chance to get browned and heated. You could also put this on a baking sheet, so I've got it in a pan, but like a flat baking sheet would work as well. When your oven is ready and it's had a little bit of a chance to absorb some of the liquid in there, we're gonna pop it in the oven and we're gonna bake it. Probably about 40 minutes. We're gonna flip it once in the middle of the baking. Preparation method number 3, scrambled tofu. So we're gonna put some additional ingredients into scrambled tofu. It's not gonna be exactly like scrambled eggs, but because tofu is able to crumble nicely and absorb flavors, we can do a preparation that's similar that actually makes for a really great meal, whether you're gonna have it for breakfast or for dinner. So we're gonna start with chopping some vegetables. I'm gonna chop up an onion, I'm gonna chop up some mushrooms, I'm gonna chop up some garlic, and those are the veggies that are gonna go in there. But you could also add other ones, such as red pepper or broccoli, or even some grated carrot works really nicely in a scrambled tofu. If you smash your garlic cloves, sometimes it makes it easier to take the peel off. If you don't feel like chopping your mushrooms, you can actually just break them apart with your fingers. The sizes and the shapes will be a little rougher, but they're gonna cook down when you saute them anyway, so why not? We're gonna start the scrambled tofu with a little bit of oil. I'm just using the same pan I used for the fried tofu. That's why it doesn't look perfectly clean. Once that's hot, let's saute the onion. Once your onions have had a chance to saute, we're going to put in some of these other ingredients. So garlic, mushrooms, about a teaspoon of salt because this is going to ultimately season the tofu. Salt will also bring out the water, the moisture from the mushrooms. And we're gonna add in a fair amount of spices. I don't always measure, and I'm not gonna measure perfectly, but use, a fair amount. Turmeric is gonna add some nice color, probably less than a teaspoon of that though, because it can be pretty strong if you use too much. And cumin. Some smoked paprika. And some thyme. I crumble this as we put it in. This will give a chance for the spices to just kind of toast a little bit in the pan before we add the tofu. It smells really good. I'm gonna add a little water to deglaze and create a liquid for the tofu to absorb. So we're just gonna crumble this whole block of tofu right into the pan. You can keep it in pretty big chunks. It will crumble more while you stir it as it cooks. So don't worry about getting it teeny tiny just yet. Stir it, get it mixed in. And you'll see it picks up the color of the turmeric. It may almost start to look a little bit like eggs. And then we're gonna add a couple last ingredients. So we're gonna add some nutritional yeast. This is optional, but I really highly recommend it. Nutritional yeast adds a really nice savory flavor. We're gonna add probably, you can do it to taste, but up to maybe 4 tablespoons of this. This will also give it some yellowness. In the meantime, our baked tofu is done, so I'm gonna get that out of the oven. So you want it to be browned, and not just brown because we put soy sauce on it, but like a little bit crispy on the edges, and there should be no moisture left in here. And it's kind of like we've dehydrated it a little bit. And then the last thing we're gonna add to the scrambled tofu is a little bit of lemon. You could probably use cider vinegar or something instead of lemon if you wanted to, but we're just gonna add a little bit of acid to kind of brighten it up and bring out some of the flavors that are already in there. We'll start with about a tablespoon. So I'm not following a precise recipe here, but I have looked at them before, and I'm gonna link in the description to a recipe that's really similar to what I'm doing here, but I also think improvise a little bit. Go with what you have, with the flavors that you like, and do things to taste so that you're not stuck in that place of, oh no, I don't have blah, 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 I can't make this dish. Find a way to make it work with what you've got. Add a little lemon. As you go, you can chop your tofu up more, but keep in mind you probably want to get the sides of it a little bit brown. So stirring too much means that probably none of it will brown, so you may want to let it cook on like one edge for a moment. I'm also going to add a little black pepper here at the end. And I think it's all seasoned up and pretty much ready to go.
I'm here to taste the tofu in a blind taste test of tofu.
You don't have to taste it blind.
I don't want to pretend I know what's coming.
It's gonna be tofu.
But in different preparations.
That's true. All right, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna feed you first one kind of tofu. Let me know what you think.
They're not too hot.
Yeah, this one's not too hot.
What is?
This is weird. What do you think?
Tastes just like baked tofu.
That's what it is. So what's the point of the blind exactly?
To see if I can tell what it is without looking.
You know it's tofu.
Yeah, but what type of tofu? What preparation? What
see.
Sauce have you put on it?
Okay.
Have you made this tofu magical?
What do you like about it?
It's got a little roastiness. It doesn't have a ton of flavor. I mean,
Okay.
the texture's gotten better.
Joe says poo-poo to tofu.
No. Maybe it just needs some sauce.
You can dip it in a sauce or you can cook it in a stir fry and then it'll get some sauce on it.
Yes.
I like it plain, personally. This is our tofu. Do you smell it?
Yes.
How does it smell?
A little garlicky. Is there any garlic?
So this is dinner tonight. Hopefully you don't hate it. Blow on it for a second. Okay.
Well, that's really good, but that's been like seasoned and stuff's been put in it.
That's the scrambled one.
Okay.
You like it?
I do.
Okay, yeah.
So do I get to eat some for dinner?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, dinner's
Thanks.
coming up. Okay, I'm gonna give you this one.
Okay.
This one is gonna be a little cold. So this one I would also recommend adding a sauce. What do you think of the texture?
All right.
Okay.
It's a little crisper on the outside. Is this fried?
This one obviously is the one that's best for quickness. Because we had this one done before the oven was even preheated on the baked tofu.
That one I kind of like the taste better. Just plain old taste of that better than the other.
It's simple. What's your favorite?
Well, that,
The scrambled.
obviously.
The scrambled is the most seasoned. This one is the most prep heavy.
They're all better than plain old tofu.
Well, yes. Tofu prep bonus tip. Did you know that you can freeze tofu? You can freeze it right in the package and then thaw it out, and what you end up with is tofu of a completely different texture. Let me show you. I'm gonna open this up and drain it out just like I did with the other ones. Here's the frozen tofu, here's the regular tofu. They look pretty similar, but look how much water I can squeeze out of the tofu. This is a completely different texture. It's much spongier, chewier, and it actually makes a really great substitute in recipes in which you would use like a ground meat. Look at the difference when I crumble regular tofu. This one, it's much drier in texture. crumble it up really small, and it will just pick things up and add a nice chewiness without being too squishy. If you have any other questions about tofu, or if you have any suggestions as to how you like to prepare it, let me know.
Okay. Good. 3 for 3 on taste test.
And stay tuned for follow-up where we use the frozen tofu in a recipe.
You can freeze tofu? Impossible.
Oh, believe me, it has been done! It is a vegetarian source of protein. Did you know that tofu, or well, let's say soy, is considered a complete protein?
I don't judge my proteins in that way. So would it be fair to say to tofu, you complete me?
It has all 9. That one's only.
Cut the take!
Well, we have to anyways because Joe's phone is ringing. But
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to give you any.
Well, all right then. They failed the taste test.